My name is Derek Shaw. I'm Secretary of the Shipley Model Railway Society. The Society caters for anybody interested in railway modelling, all interest, all gauges, all sizes, and we have members from the local area and from surrounding towns. It's got 2 club rooms, one of which you're in at the moment, and pleased to say it's a thriving society with about 50 members. This is Leicester South Great Central layout. It's 30 feet by 14 foot. It's built in 4mm scale in double-O gauge. The layout is about 9 years on from when we made the decision to go for this particular area. The inspiration was in the books from Colin Walker. He produced several photographic books featuring the Great Central Railways, and it was while looking at one of these books that we made the decision. The members like building main line layouts, so that was a major influence. We have different interests with the team. Some prefer the Eastern region, locos, some the Midlands, some British Railways, Southern, Great Western, and it caters for all those in particular. The old Great Central line was a main line in every sense of the word, and with through trains that ran, particularly at holiday specials for all different regions, that interest is catered for. We were originally going to model Leicester Central Station, which interested us, but on reflection, the amount of canopies there would have hidden the stock extensively, so we moved a few hundred yards down from there, south of the station, and came up with the location that you see here. The first and the criteria, probably the most important criteria in terms of the layout, was the finished size, and that was limited by the space in the club rooms, and that's it's 30 feet by 14 feet, the overall layout. So having got a layout size, we then looked at how much of the track plan that existed we could put on and represent, because although we are happy with what we have achieved, we have had to shorten various parts of the track to get the various main features in. We've selectively condensed parts of the track layout in order to get the main features on, and indeed the main goods yard is not the full width, and the carriage cleaning sheds also were bigger, but by condensing them we have been able to incorporate all those features on the layout and use them. Well, the era of 1948 to 63 covered the railways where they were still recovering from the war. They were run down, there were lots of old vehicles, both locomotives and coaches, still running in the sort of end of the 40s and into the 50s. And it gives us a chance to show this part of Leicester with stock running through that ran in that period of change from the nationalisation, and as British Railways gradually got their policies developed, changing their colour schemes, for example, into blood and custard, then into maroon, and building their own locomotives. That is reflected on the layout, but also reflected is the period of how we lived in the 1950s in particular, and we have tried to represent that from the buildings, the conditional buildings with the weathering that you see on the layout. The layout was built in situ, but various parts of it, for example, clearly model coaches, trains, things were all built at home. A lot of the buildings were built at home. Some of the track work, the points were built off-site. So it's been possible to work on the layout in the club rooms and separately at home, working on several parts of it. The two signal boxes on the layout may be of interest. The south box, which is the larger of the two, the top row of windows, is whitewashed as it was on the real thing, with the exception of a couple of windows which were left clear for sighting the signals. It was obvious that that was in a very sunny position. The north signal box was built by the Great Central Railways as a wood cabin, and during the war it was one of the signal boxes selected to have additional means of protection from bomb blast, and so there are several layers of brick being added to the bottom, which again we have modelled, which makes it a little bit interesting and different from normal ones. All the track on the layout has been hand built. It's built using copper clad sleepers and code 70 or 75 rail. Two members built all the track, so you can imagine that's been a real labour of love. The stock is a mixture of ready to run, which has been modified, kit built and scratch built. We've had to do that to represent accurately all the various trains. The research was detailed enough for us to know which coaches were used, for example, on which trains, and we've tried to build trains, accurate trains of the period, so that you're getting a scale model of a railway rather than a railway model. The locomotives are also a mix of ready to run, kit built and scratch built. A lot of the ready to run ones have been modified. One of the challenges we had with the locomotives was the gradient. The gradient that we've modelled is about 1 in 75, and because we have kit built coaches, in many cases out of brass, it's a very, very heavy train. And so on occasions we have had problems with locomotives pulling the train up the incline, and that has led to extra kit building. So we've used, for example, DGH kits to model a lot of the A3s so that they have the weight to pull the trains up that banking. In reality, the gradient was there as we had modelled it, and that was taking the line up to Leicester Central Station. The Great Central Railway was the last mainline railway to run through Leicester, and it had to go over the top, and so the line climbed to the high level station and was carried on viaducts for quite a distance through Leicester. Well, the initial research in terms of the locomotives and trains was done by myself, because we wanted to early on agree between us which trains we were going to model, knowing that a lot of kit building and scratch building would be required to reproduce the trains accurately. However, other members have taken the research to a much more detailed on indeed the trains and all aspects of the layout. A large number of books and different sources were used in terms of getting photographs of the area and information, but one of our members contacted a lot of people who worked in the area on the railway and got first-hand experience of how this part of the track south of Leicester Central Station was operated. So we have information on the operation as opposed to just the running trains round there. It requires 6 operators to operate all the time to show the layout as it's designed to be used. We have an operator on each main line, one driving north, one driving south. We have an operator in the goods yard. We have an operator driving trains out of what we refer to as the engine shed, and that requires a little bit of explanation. Leicester Central Engine Shed was just off our board here in front of me, and we hadn't room to fit that in, so we've curved the line round to take it underneath the road bridge, the Midland Line rail bridge there, and it is represented in the fiddle yard, so we have trains, locomotives running in and out of the engine shed on using that line. The additional operator operates at the back of the layout, driving trains which reverse or change direction or add stock, or stock is the trains which need to be terminated in that point, as opposed to ones which just run round. A layout like this couldn't be built without a team. Indeed, a team with specialist skills in all the various parts that go up to make a layout, from the scenery, skill in carpentry, the baseboards, electrics, model building, and all those came into play on the in building the layout. Clearly, starting with the baseboards. They were put together by members with a team of about 10 people who mainly been involved with the construction of the layout. And as I say, we have specialists in the people making the scenery and stock. And even whilst the baseboards were being put together, some stock was being built. We identified trains, because it's not just a model of an accurate location, but the research went into detail of the various trains that ran on this particular line in the period which we chose. The period being the start of nationalisation in 1948 to 1963. The reason we chose that period was that the Eastern region were in control until 1958, when the Midland region took over, and the different regions had different policies regarding the stock which was running through, so we were able to get the maximum amount of different trains and locomotives by spanning that period of time. And that includes some of the stock you will see in coaches in pre-nationalisation liveries, which were still running in the early part of this period. The infrastructure is based around the middle of the 1950s. We had to make or decide on some date for that, because the infrastructure changed quite a lot quickly. For example, where you see the lake on our model, very shortly and during the period we modelled, it started to be changed to a timber factory going in that site. The large goods warehouse was a major effort in building. The sheer size of it required bracing, but it is again a scale model, but it's been shortened because of the need to get it in the space available. At the front of the warehouse there are 4 wagon turntables, 3 of which work. At the rear of the warehouse there are 4 wagon turntables, all of which work. So we have 7 working wagon turntables. To go with the wagon turntables, we needed a means of having vans moving in and out. In reality, locomotives were not allowed in the warehouse, and they were moved around the warehouse and adjacent tracks by means of powered capstans and slave capstans and ropes wrapped round the capstans attached to the wagons. It's impossible to do the wrapping of the rope around the wagons in model form, so what we have done is built motorised vans, and these vans go in and out of the goods shed and around using the wagon turntables. We as a group, we are one group within Shipley Model Railway Society. We've used this period before on, for example, T-Bay layout. It is one that we like because of the wide variety of stock that we can run. But we're only one group within the society, and even some of our members help other groups, and we quite happily run diesels or DCC and we have other interests. We can appreciate all kinds of modelling. But as a group we've come together to reproduce what we like, which is a main line, a real location. And talking about a real location, that has certain advantages for a modeller, in that we don't have to think now, should we have a line there, where is the signal box going to go, where are the signals going to go, it's all done for you. However, the disadvantage is that if you're taking a real location and making a fairly good job of it, then you have to reproduce it, which means usually scratch building in terms of the buildings, because there's nothing on this layout in the infrastructure really. You can buy as a kit or from the shelf. So 99% of the infrastructure here has all been scratch built or modified. I discovered railway modelling when I went to school at Shipley Bridge. The school overlooked a 4-track main line, Shipley Bridge Station, and the Ilkley line was going up a gradient there. It was a boarding school, so I could hardly ignore the railway. In fact, the first night that I was there, I couldn't believe the noise, the sounds from the railway, which operated 24 hours, with steam engines, of course, which are much noisier than the modern electrics which run on that route. Friends of mine that I made there were more knowledgeable on railways and pointed out to me that some engines were different to others. I could see some were longer, but they pointed out, for example, the difference between a Black 5 and a Jubilee and an 8F. And thanks to that situation, really, I became interested in railways and never looked back since. Well, the first railway that I built was a Hornby 003 railway. And it was very exciting. I liked it. Trains went fast. They went too fast, they came off. But it was very reliable. But then I noticed that some people had 2 rail layouts, and that was even more realistic. So eventually I changed to 2 rail, and I built a layout in my loft eventually, and that was a main line layout. I've always been interested in the main lines, probably with main lines. Probably because of my experience at school, seeing the Thames Clyde and the Waverley and Roar past has been the highlights of the day there. After the loft layout, the loft proved a bit of a problem eventually because of the extremes of heat and cold. And it was also a layout which had part of it electrified on the Sheffield-Manchester system, and the overhead wires were live, and they were very difficult to clean. Nice sparks when the locos went underneath. But eventually I built a layout in the bedroom downstairs, and that's still going about 27, 28 years later. Still same layout, main line, squeezed into a room about 12 foot by 9 foot, and it was in fact featured in British Railway modelling, and the layout name is Leeds Exchange. It's very satisfying when you build a layout of a real location and you get people from that area come and say, wow, or I used a train spot just here, and thank you. The layout is not finished as you see it. It is, I suppose, perhaps 95% finished. There's still some scenic work to do. For example, there's a small holding to go around the edge of the lake, and we still have some signals to build and to get all the signals working. With all this is in hand and is ongoing. I would not advise anyone to start building a large layout, no matter how much they like main lines, simply because too many people have started building a large layout and not finished it because of lack of time, effort, space. If you're building your own layout, initially do something small that's finished and build up, hone your skills. But you can get involved with a large layout right from the start if you join a modern railway club. because of the space and the members and the help, this is one of the advantages of the Model Railway Club, that there's always someone there who knows, can help you with whatever problem you might have, whether it be electrics, something that won't work, and together you can achieve something like we've built here.